welcome to the Damn Black Attack podcast presents the Regular Guy News. I am Dan Black, and I will be your host for this evening. Bob. Welcome to RGN, the Regular Guy News, the least pretentious name in news. I'm Dan Black, and here's what I think. Coming at you with 5 beverages right now. I have a LaCroix. I have my creatine water. I have an oat milk latte, and I have an iced tea. And we're rocking out. And we have a lot to discuss here in the world of news. If you have not listened to this podcast before, what we do here is we dissect a news story, something that they brought up in the news, and I go, what are they talking about? I don't know what's true. Whenever I get confused, and let me tell you, we live in a confusing time, I dive deep into the topic, and by deep, I mean I read a maximum of 2 articles, and I come at you as a regular guy. I don't pretend to know that much. I'm not a dumb guy. I'm not a particularly brilliant guy either, I'll tell you that. But Erin shook her head no. I know more than most. But man, I just want someone to come at this shit and just be like, what's going on? And that's the point of this podcast. All right. As always, before we dive deep into the topics, and we will dive deep, 2 articles deep, remember, you can rate this podcast 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. This podcast is grassroots. And if you rate us 5 stars and in the comments you write something, I legally have to write it on the podcast. I notice a lot of you are not writing stuff, but you are giving us 5-star reviews. So that is an option, by the way. If you don't write a comment, just go on there and scroll down, give us 5 stars. It helps a lot with the algorithm. Also, before we get into this, let me introduce, out in the field, actually, we have the only RGN correspondent, Miss Erin Finnerty, out in the field.
Thank you, Dan. What up? I'm reporting live.
Okay, so you're out in the field this week.
Yes.
Where are you reporting live from this week?
This week, Dan, I'm coming to you live from Los Angeles, California, my apartment, approximately 1 mile from your house.
Wow. Okay, so the same place as last weekend, the week before, it seems.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
There's still a lot of heat, a lot of action.
Oh, okay.
In my apartment
you're
here.
in the fire. Okay.
I'm embedded. I'm embedded currently.
And you gauge it, right? It's based on where the action is, right now? And
Absolutely.
You thought that is the center of kind of controversy in your world, you would say?
100%.
Okay, well,
I'm also not allowed to leave, so.
Oh, yes, that's true. It's quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
We've had to cancel a lot of the tickets we bought from you. We had tickets you were going to go to Abu Dhabi. You were going to be...
Yeah, I was going to be Abu Dhabi, Minneapolis,
the 2 hotbeds of controversy
City.
right
now. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
here I am.
We had to cancel
there's
a couple
still
interviews.
A lot of action. Yeah.
You had to sit down with Cuomo. We had to cancel. You had to sit down with the other Cuomo. We had to cancel. You had to.
Yeah.
You were
we
going to visit the
canceled on both Cuomos.
gravesite of Mario Cuomo. You were going to visit that.
Mm-hmm.
We had to cancel all that because we don't really, frankly, we're it's not a budgetary thing. This podcast is very wealthy.
1%.
It's because of we respect the coronavirus. But Erin, as always on this podcast, we want to hear from you. What's less pretentious than hearing from the folks, right?
Cool. Yeah.
And so we have the regular guy mailbag, the Regular Guy News mailbag. You can email us at regularguynews@gmail.com. See, it's just a Gmail. Anyone can get it. Regularguynews@gmail. And Erin, do we have anything in the mailbag this week?
Well, Dan, we do. We have one item. We do. Can you believe it?
All right.
Lock it in. Yes, we have one item in our mailbag today. So let me open up the mailbag and take out our mail. Okay. So this week we have a letter from listener Philip H., who you may recall from a few weeks ago. Philip H. is one of our finest listeners.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so let me read it to you. It's a little long. So subject, social media friends falling for QAnon. Dan and Erin, great episode this week. I think it's great to cover QAnon because unfortunately it is gaining steam and it's frightening to see that not enough people in the media or government are taking it as seriously as they should. Speaking of gaining steam, a few weeks ago, I had my first experience with QAnon infecting someone I know. I was scrolling through Instagram and saw a former coworker's picture of her dog. As I was about to like the photo, it was a cute dog. I see in the background on the coffee table the book QAnon, An Invitation to the Great Awakening. It stopped me in my tracks, and I immediately unfollowed that person. I will say it was easy to do because of someone that I kind of knew that I worked with a few years ago. I really worry about people with close friends or family members that might fall into something like this. I don't know what I would do if this had been a loved one with this book in their house. Do you break off with them completely or try to convince them otherwise? The power of this ridiculous cult is that any logic against their beliefs can be dismissed by a simple, you've been fed lies from the mainstream media,
right,
or some nonsense like that. Thanks so much and keep up the great work. Philip H.
Well,
So,
Philip, thank you.
This is a real what would you do scenario.
Absolutely, and this is where you want to come. You want to come to the least pretentious name in news. Let me tell you this.
Yeah.
A couple things.
Yeah.
First thing is, let's remind the people what QAnon is, okay? And we don't need to go in depth because if you want to know what QAnon is, our last episode's called "What is QAnon?" Or it's actually called "What the F is QAnon?"
Oh, excuse me.
Yes, yeah. Please don't curse. But just to sum it up, what QAnon is, and I think this is important to answer Philip's question. QAnon is a conspiracy. It's an organization, right? Or I guess it's like an online community. It's not like they're not organized where they have like proper meetups. It's not like, right? And they have this leader named Q who's like an anonymous internet meme essentially, right?
Right.
So, but what QAnon's core belief is that the government is run by a ring of Hollywood elite pedophiles.
Not
right?
The government. No. Well, they believe that.
No, that Biden is a vessel, or like that the major that like
Hollywood,
the Bushes and like the Clintons, right, are the classic institutionalized families of the government.
And Hollywood and all the leftist people are part of a pedophilia cabal, also including cannibals. And they also believe that President Trump was installed into the presidency by high-ranking military officials to defeat this ring of pedophiles and cannibals.
Right. So here's why I bring that. Okay. Sorry, Erin. I didn't fully absorb the ridiculousness of this.
There's not enough
conspiracy.
room in your brain folds.
So a couple things. First thing I want to say is, Philip, this might not be someone that you know so well, right?
Right.
And I want to know, like, how deep is somebody's belief in QAnon? Because look, all conspiracies and all these like cults are based in a good idea. That's how they gain momentum. So if you watch, for example, right now, The Vow on HBO is about NXIVM. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And NXIVM's a cult similar to Scientology that has let's put in quote unquote, good intentions to point out that people are living too negatively or something, and they have these blocks. Yeah. That is true. I deal with like on a creative level every day is like is some kind of struggle to be creative and get through my blocks, and what's the point, and this and this. So like I understand why people fall susceptible to these things, and I understand why these groups present a good option for people, because a lot of it is based, especially Scientology, is based in modern psychiatric practices, right?
Right.
So like auditing is going to feel really good. The process of auditing is how Scientology brings you in, and that's literally just essentially talk therapy and hypnosis combined, right?
Right.
So some version of that. And then if you watch the NXIVM thing, it's almost the same kind of thing. My point being that these people you're talking about, I wouldn't necessarily give up on them, because they might be drawn into the true parts of these QAnon, something like a QAnon, which, for example, is the fact that there are Hollywood pedophilia is a real thing. It is a real thing. Like, it keeps being proven over and over again, is that there is a pedophilia problem in places of power. It's true.
Right.
So, and is there a blind eye to this stuff? Yes. Do people of power abuse it? Yes. Is Clinton and Trump both in pictures with Jeffrey Epstein? Major yes.
Yeah, big yes. There's photographic proof.
Right? So that stuff's based in true proven hypocrisy, and that's kind of the brilliance of the internet, is that like we can't just be fed these narratives from Fox News and CNN, who both have stakes in these candidates, right? Okay, so they don't really talk about this stuff. So that's the beauty of the internet. But then it always goes a step further, and that's when you start hitting the conspiracy elements of QAnon and the Pizza Gates and that kind of shit.
Right.
And the question is this person is this person so far gone that they believe that Hillary Clinton has a pizza place that she operates a child sex ring out of?
Uh-huh.
Or are they someone who just thinks that we're turning a blind eye to Hollywood pedophilia? Because if that's where they're at, they might be savable. Because they should feel nuts about that. It is something we turn this fucking blind eye to.
But I'd have to say that if you're going, the QAnon rabbit hole is so deep and so much broader than pedophilia. I think that anyone in their right mind would be like, hey, let's leave solving pedophilia and cracking down on these sex criminals to the pros, which would be like the police and special victims unit of the world. Like, to QAnon, I think is so, it's not right. It's so beyond just like justice for victims of child sex trafficking and stuff.
Right. Okay. I guess I agree with you. I guess all I'm just saying is that someone might not even fully know what it is. They might or they might not. And I think the only way to combat this stuff is to engage. You know what I mean? Like, I worried about what Trump is now, and this is something I want to go into. Trump is now co-opted as part of his platform cancel culture, right? And if you go back on the my wrestling podcast, because canceling is part of all our culture, it's part of wrestling. But even we're going years back, I worry about cancel culture, right? Because it's
right.
I'm not saying this is delicate, but I'm not giving full credence to being like cancel culture is bullshit. It's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying if we live in a society where people are not redeemable at all, right? Then we run into these problems of people who have nothing to lose, and we start not being better than people who commit terrible acts or something, right?
Yeah. And I mean, cancel culture is so broad because it's like, it's hard to draw a line of like what is a cancelable offense and what is not. And we did discuss this in depth as it pertains to some things that have gone on in wrestling. But yeah, it is a tricky one.
Right. And if you're not a wrestling, for people, I know a lot of people listening to this are not, we're wrestling. We like pro wrestling, okay?
Right.
But wrestling, it just is now is the same as any place. Hollywood has a lot of people are being weeded out. Talent's being weeded out for their behavior outside of their occupation.
And the reckoning in wrestling just happened within the last couple months, so it's fresh.
But I guess what I'm saying is that this unfollow, I understand. Listen, there's a girl that I follow, okay, who I know this. We're not very close, okay, and she's a woman. I don't know why I call her girl. She's a woman. I follow her on social media because we've known each other for, I don't know, we had mutual friends for like 10 years, and at some point we clicked friend on each other, okay? But we don't interact, ever.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that she is, I knew that she was a Scientologist, okay?
Interesting.
Okay. And she works for Scientology. Okay, whatever. And then I noticed she posted something the other night that was during the RNC that was pro-Trump. So this is someone I follow that I actually know who's pro-Trump, and also not even just pro-Trump, because let's put it this way, because I don't want that to be equated as someone who's a Republican.
Right.
This was specific, being like, oh well, vote Trump because he's not like fully giving into the like he's not, or else you're voting for socialism.
Oh, right. That
Like full on that,
logical
and you're like,
flaw.
oh,
Yeah.
okay, got it, okay.
Hmm.
So I see where you are on this, and I still don't unfollow this person who's a Trump Scientologist, a real winner.
That's interesting. Yeah. Wow.
Because I don't want to be in a bubble. Is my point. Like I don't want
Right.
and I think there's part of me that wants to see these people turn it around. Like if I'm
Yeah,
friends
you're
with
an
this person for
optimist.
like 15 years, there's no you would at some point Scientology will backfire on them, right?
Of course.
You
Of
have to hit some
course.
kind of wall,
Yeah.
you know.
That's
Anyway,
interesting. Well, I
um,
can say I don't want to speak out of school and he's here, but Mike has a family member who is a QAnon believer and has attended QAnon events in South Dakota and
wow,
is friends with people who are hardcore QAnon people. And for the first time since discovering this, Mike and this person, my husband, crossed paths a
wow,
couple weeks ago.
okay,
And so when I told him about this mailbag item that we received, and his approach was, this is my family member. I have love for this person.
right,
I do not respect their beliefs at all, but he still approached this person with like some love, like did
right,
not because other family members might get angry and kind of like flip out or have a
right,
negative reaction, but he approached it in a way like, listen, like we're family. I'm going to try not to let your crazy ass beliefs like, stand in the way of that.
right,
So he took the high road in this instance.
right.
I have a cousin who's a Trump supporter, and I unfollowed her bitch ass like as soon as I found out that was the truth.
Okay,
I was like,
so wait, look, that's how
I want
somebody
to
do it.
send a message.
I think I have more tolerance for. It's something I realized. I have more tolerance for like people who disagree with me or something than some people I know. I don't mean that in some kind of like high like put
Of
myself in some
course.
high esteem. It's just like I can handle still following them even if it doesn't outrage me to the level like my friend Alex Newman who literally like is like I have to unfollow this person. Like it drives
Yeah.
him nuts.
I'm
Um
kind of on Newman's side just because I just like don't want to see it and I can't stand it. And sometimes I think people are just like too thick headed and
right.
not worth getting through. But I also see where you're coming from with like a little bit of optimism. Like maybe if I continue to follow this person, I can see them flip. And once you click on follow, it's kind of hard to see if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think I also have this like deep fascination with like someone who has who's grown up with a lot of the same information I have and still can be pulled in such a misguided direction. I think that is just inherently going to be interesting to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I
It's
don't
like
know.
seeing like one of like someone you went to high school with get pulled into like a pyramid scheme where they're like selling shit online and you're like, I can't look away from this. Like I want to see how
Right? Like
this tanks.
I just grew up in such a way where like everything is a scam. Like I'm so
Yeah,
like
yeah,
right, like
yeah.
everything's a
Totally,
scam.
totally.
Everyone's trying to fuck you over. No one's being truthful, and
Yeah.
you have to like really. And I'm always on guard. Like that's how it is.
100.
And then the people who can fall for like an Herbalife,
Oh my
you know what I
god.
mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm just like wow.
I
That
know.
is like it's almost like I can't wrap my head around it. Like how
Me
is
either.
and then it goes back to the QAnon conversation last week where it's like people are so fucking lost and
Yeah.
people we do like I hate to sound like some fucking religious right person but like we need to restore the family and like
Right.
what is it like where people need to feel like loved and heard within their own locality, you know?
Yeah, and I'd have a hard time believing that, like, short of being, like, part of a very religious family or having some pretty radical, growing up with some radical beliefs and being, like, conditioned for those to be your beliefs, I
Right.
have a hard time believing that a lot of these QAnon supporters are, like, well adjusted, well educated,
Right.
happy, fulfilled people.
Well, right, that's likely true, and also I'm not above unfollowing people. I just want to say that I've unfollowed a lot of people. As many people know, I had a stand-up clip that went viral. I got a lot of friend requests that day, like
that you
literally
accepted.
1,000, and accepted all of them.
Yeah.
And because I was like, you know what, these are people who be fans of my stuff, and I don't even like Facebook to begin with,
Right.
and that's why my Facebook is so diverse in that
Dan's
way.
Facebook is really
My Facebook's
diverse.
like ruined. Like, talk about echo
Yeah.
chamber, and I think it's something I kind of like about it, because it's like, it's sometimes horrifying, but like in a way where I don't feel, you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like I'm shielded, you know?
Right. It's like a
Which,
peek behind the
no,
curtain.
I am. Right. But and there's people who are just like despicable, who I have to unfollow, and they can like ruin my day with their behavior, like full on racist shit, you know?
Yeah,
like, you know, and you're like, wow. And it's funny because I'll click on their profile sometimes just to be like, why am I friends with this person? And then like immediately there's pictures of like Stone Cold, or like I know,
like,
okay, they're a wrestling guy.
why.
They found me through pro wrestling stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh, okay, that's the only way me and this person have any kind of connection. But that actually does tie into our topic for today, which we'll get into in a second. But I just want to say, to answer Philip H, and then I have some thoughts on this. Just what's his actual question, though? By the way, is there a specific? I want to make sure we answer whatever he's posed as the actual question.
His actual question is,
which we've probably
if you
already.
if you discover that someone you know, maybe a loved one or someone you're close with, has these beliefs, would you break off with them completely or try to convince them otherwise?
I think first off, it's really, if it's someone I guess I inherently don't really believe on giving up on people. Like I think that are people like that you love and are in your family, because I do think they will come to their senses. And also I think like you know, it's similar, man. I mean, they need your voice in their life. Like, you affect them. You affect them in a way you don't even realize. Like, you know, maybe it's a little way. So I just think if you bail on them, then they have no one. Now, some behavior is irredeemable. You know what I mean? So that's what we're talking about. But if it's someone you care about, but look, it sounds like, Philip, this is someone you don't know at all. And if their feet, you're likely not going to change their mind.
His question was a hypothetical, like if it was someone he did care about, which I think if it's someone that you care about and you have like a real relationship with, like you talk often, you're engaged with them, you see them a lot, I think like, yes, like you could be the voice of reason in their world. But if it's someone you don't really have a relationship with and you just like know online, or you know, you see pictures every now and then it would be a little weird to kind of be like, hey, let me convince you otherwise.
I agree, but Erin, let me challenge you a little bit the other way and say that I have reached out to people that I only know through doing like a comedy show together, or like our listeners of one of my podcasts who I've seen post misguided stuff and written them messages like, hey, I see you write this, no judgments at all. I'm just curious where you're coming from, because I don't share at all any beliefs that agree with that, and I'd like to hear you because I know you're a rational person. And then I've heard them out, had pretty civil conversations with them, and I find it really interesting is that I'm like, oh, I see where you're coming from. Okay, I disagree, and I'm like, all right, I guess some, like, in my mind, Trump's behavior is irredeemable, right? Like, no matter what, I'll never vote for this guy. There's just no chance. There's no chance. I'm voting. I happen to also like Biden. You know what I mean? Like, I went to University of Delaware. He's in Delaware. The senator from Delaware, whatever. He was also part of the Obama administration. I trust Joe Biden. You know what I mean? I don't think he's perfect, but I think he's a good, decent man. You know what I mean? So I like Biden, but regardless of that, I'm voting against Donald Trump. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think that's really important. So I don't understand how people don't do that. But I don't understand. Some people don't see it that way. They have a problem with Biden. Here's my point. My point is that we'll have a civil conversation. It ends. And then they'll go back to that. We have a conversation where I'm like, I think we kind of saw eye to eye. This person was pretty respectable of me. We had like a really nice conversation, even we moved off of that topic. And then they'll spew like vitriol on their next post to just the broad social media verse, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Right? So it's
right.
like this person actually is pretty reasonable when you talk to them in person and one-on-one, right?
Yeah.
But then feels a need to make what they spew out in the broader sense, even if it's something I disagree with, has to do it in a pretty vile way because that's part of the attention grab of social media.
True. I mean, I just don't. I applaud you for reaching out and having those
Right.
conversations, but I think that that is a unique feature of you, Dan. Like, it's not
I guess
something
I
like
didn't even think
me
that. I
I
guess it
would
is.
do. Yeah, I mean, good on you for doing that, but I don't
Because
think that's something. At
you and
least
I
I
was like,
personally would not
I
do.
was like, we should get a Trump supporter on the pod,
Yeah, a
and
little behind the
you were like,
scenes, and I was like,
no,
no,
and I was like,
firm
I would
no.
love to talk to someone because like I want to talk to like I want to do like a no bullshit conversation with someone and be like, play them a clip and just be like, how does that hit you, and why does it not? Like, how does that not like shake you to your core? And then I would like to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I hear where you're coming from, and I do think that is interesting, but I
Right.
would think it would be a challenge to find someone who would be civil and logical and willing to have a regular discussion to defend their beliefs, because I just, like you said, it's irredeemable. So any rationale these people would have to offer, these people, Trump supporters would have to offer, I just don't want to hear it.
Erin, do you think it's possible? Honestly, do
Okay,
you believe this
Dan.
possible
Mm-hmm.
that I could find someone maybe someone who's like a Trump supporter, but they're like not that informed. They're kind of just a down the party line kind of a person
Mm-hmm.
because they're like,
Do I
that's
think
just how
that's
I vote.
possible?
No, well, that's not it yet.
Okay.
And then I bring them on the pod, and then I convince them to vote for Biden. Do you think that's possible that I could change somebody's vote on here?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I
isn't
do.
that worth it?
Yeah, I guess it is
In a
worth
swing
it. I
state?
guess when you in a swing state, yeah, if you can find someone in Iowa or whatever who's willing to come on. But
If I change, I guess I want, and I think this is a really cool point, is
yeah,
that if I could change one person's vote in a swing state, one,
yeah,
don't you think that I've been more productive than anyone who just unfollows somebody?
that would be yes, yes, that would be more productive.
Right.
I guess I'm just like I find it Trump so repulsive and the things that he says and does that
Yeah.
to hear someone try to defend it. Now, if they're
Well, because he's a
willing
con man.
if they're willing to be like, change my mind, then okay. Or, a lot of people who voted for Trump are people who are like Republican down the party lines, old
Right.
school GOP voters. And I do think that those are people who have changed their minds without your help.
Right.
So those people do exist. And if you'd like to have one on here, on display and watch it happen in real time, then I'm open to that. But I don't
Okay.
know.
All right. All right. Well, you heard it here second.
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
non-exclusive.
Well, it's also interesting because all right, wait. It's time for my pee break. It's time for my quick pee break, and then we'll get back to this point. All right, we'll take our quick pee break.
Yeah.
I'll play a little tune.
Okay.
For the folks. And we're back. I'll probably keep the pee break in the video, but I'll cut it out of the podcast. You're muted.
I'm not muted
Hello.
anymore.
All right. Okay, coming back in. Hey, it's fine. You guys saw a little BTS pee break,
Yeah.
but you won't hear this on the pod. Okay, so
Anyway.
This brings me into my next point. Okay, so thank you, Philip H,
Thanks,
for that
Philip
question.
H. Thanks for listening.
And if you want to get your questions on here, it's regularguymail@gmail.com.
I'm sorry, it's RegularGuyNews@gmail.com.
Do I always get it wrong?
That's an RGN non-exclusive. Yeah.
What is it?
RegularGuyNews@gmail.com.
Okay, so it's even clearer than I thought.
Yes.
You know, one thing that I'm starting to worry about with this election is I'm worried about the arguments that the extreme left are giving Trump. Okay, so for example, I was talking to a friend, and by the way, I just want to say this. This is by no means in support of the right or Trump. I'll never vote for this man. I just want to lay that out there. He's a con man. Everything he does is a con. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. And there's no but. He looks for holes. He's argumentative in a style I understand. He's another fellow New Yorker. He looks for these holes and he exploits them. It's not brilliant genius. It's part of the nature of a New Yorker. Right?
Yeah.
Other thing about the nature of a New Yorker is to put things in matter-of-fact, everyday guy terms. Okay? So this is something that Trump does. Okay, so there's 2 points here. Okay. My friend came to me, and I like this guy. He might even listen to this podcast. Great guy. He told me, he was like, in my dating profile, I have ACAB. Okay? You know what that is?
Yes. You want me to define it for people?
All cops are bad, right?
Bastards.
Oh, is it bastards or bad?
I think it's bastards.
And here's the thing. It's not true. Like, it's, listen, go back a couple episodes. I have major problems with the police.
Right. We did a whole episode about it.
Major problems with the police. And I think the underlying message of defund the police has a really good message in there, which is we need to allocate resources smarter. We need to rethink the system on how it's helping communities and the constituents of their district, right? Right, completely, especially mental health calls. The police, if you talk to them, their umbrella of what the police handle is too much.
It's very broad.
It's extremely broad. And maybe we can even argue with they're overfunded. I actually don't know, but that's not even where I'm coming from, right? We're talking about a city where over half of the budget goes towards policing in these cities. You're like, well, maybe we could reallocate the money to other places. Like that's good, intelligent conversation. Now defund the police, a losing message. Just that slogan might as well be written by Putin. You know, in my mind.
Yeah.
It's people. It's gonna freak people out, right?
Yes.
You know, who don't understand the nuance of it. It's just not a great catchphrase. And this is just another worse extension of this. And all cops are bad. It's speaking in Trump-like talk about all. It's extreme.
Right.
It's not true. There are good cops. Now, there are good cops. It just is what it is. There are good cops.
Yeah.
What? Absolutely.
I'm friends with one of them.
That kind of message. It's like we all have cops in our families and stuff.
Yeah.
And like to say when you start saying the system is broken, now you're making it personal. I mean, that's okay. Regardless, again, similar to defund the police, I get the sentiment. The sentiment is good, which is that we need change there, and you're fighting fire with fire. I understand all that, but again, that's a losing message. You're handing Trump votes with that.
100%.
And you have to know that.
And they're exploiting it, like during the RNC, like that. Like you said, we're handing the extreme left or whatever is handing this message to them that they're now using to like create fear in their voters and whatever.
Right. And I guess it's like I guess I am the extreme left as like based in my community, but I guess I never really thought of myself as extreme left because I just think anything extreme is irrational. I equate extreme with irrational.
Right.
But like people I know are doing this, and I that's gonna give Trump votes, so that's stressful to me. And then on this, so I heard that, and that's just me. I'm curious if anyone wants to defend that to me. Hit RegularGuyNews at gmail.com. And tell me why I'm wrong about that, why we need to fight with that. Now, if your argument is going to be that we've tried police reform and it hasn't worked and we need to actually defund the police, well, then there's a conversation to be had there. But I think just writing off reform in general seems like another extreme way to go. Yeah. We need different kinds of reform, better reform, more extreme reform. But just don't write off the word reform.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's Trump talk.
Right.
Extreme. Similar. Right. And so now how this applies to Trump being a con man and a jerk. He did an interview with Laura Ingraham that I watched. Obviously, I sat through 90% of this thing. Oh, my God. Now, listen. If you want to watch it, you can watch it. I try to watch this stuff through a lens that is maybe unpopular, but through the lens of, like, I do it with Biden also, where I'm like, is he blowing it or is this... And let me tell you, I think a lot of people are going to watch this interview and think it's good.
Really?
Yeah. And it's not that it is good. It's just that it's not a total train wreck in a lot of ways. And also, if you watch it, Laura Ingraham is a supporter of his.
Of course.
Every time he starts going nuts, she nudges him back. Like, it's like she's like his bumper cars in this.
Yeah.
He starts rambling, and she goes... She just keeps knocking him back in line, right?
Of course,
and it's not that he's in line. It's just for him, it's semi in line.
Well, she stops him from spiraling out of control because she knows that those will be the sound bites that we're all looking at on Twitter tomorrow.
Well, and also not similar to the Chris Wallace interview and Axios interviews with Trump. When he says something ridiculous, she doesn't dive deep. So, for example, he starts spewing shit like that Biden is run by shadow people and stuff.
I heard about that, yeah.
So he starts saying, like, you don't even want to know. They're like, oh, they go, oh, Biden's an empty vessel. She's like, well, for who? She pushes him a little bit. He starts going, for people you don't even know. I can't go into it. You don't even know. Shadow people, you don't even know. But then she moves on quick where you're like, no, stop.
Ask who the shadow people are.
Who are you talking about? Like, there was a time where there was decency, where you remember that woman in the town hall said to John McCain, like, oh, Obama is a Muslim, right? And he was like, no, he's not. He said that. It was like, even though that's a winning argument, because the fear tactics at that time in a post 9/11 world is if Obama is Muslim, that's a winning argument for McCain. He's like, it's untrue. There's lines here. Like, right? The man.
Well, McCain was like old school politician. Like, he respected kind of the rules of the game. Like, he's like Biden's like old friend. Like, he kind of plays that card. Like, he knows what he's doing. Trump is just like on his own shit.
Right. And so, look, there's things about Trump. So he's saying that. But, so, okay. Then so what is he talking about? Let me tell you, as a New Yorker, what Trump is doing there. People write stuff like, this man is unwell and stuff.
Right.
Now, listen, I believe that to be true. But you can't just throw it out recklessly. Right. What he's doing there is because he just is saying stuff because he has nothing else to say, right?
Right.
He just got caught in a lie. So people are like, this guy's unwell. You're like, no, that's him. That's just him being a fucking New Yorker, right? And my point is not to point that out to defend him. My point is that he won the election last time, right? So there's things he's doing that are not necessarily offending everyone the same way they're offending you, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think some people are able to watch him and just go like, yeah, that's just, like, they write that off as just like politics. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's kind of important for the Democrats and Biden, which I thought he did a nice job of this week in his speech, to stay on message, which is like, this guy, don't get caught up in all of his everything, because he overwhelms you with shit. Get caught up in pointing out how he's not working for America. Right?
And
how
the facts.
Right. He literally says Portland. He literally was saying, he goes, Portland's been burning for a long time. Listen, I've been to Portland.
Yeah, I was
the place
there
is
recently.
Gorge. Okay,
Yeah,
I was thinking
great.
about moving there. It is a beautiful city. beautiful. And right now, it's people are protesting at night in a pretty central area.
Yeah, I've actually spoken to people who live in Portland while this has been going on, and they confirmed, like, when you're downtown, like during the day going to the office, you don't even know that this happens. But then at night, it's also, like you said, like a very small area.
Right.
Is where all this kind of action erupts. But when you're in Portland, just in the day, going into the office, it's
right. And like
business
some
as
of
usual.
it's
not burning.
You know?
Yeah.
But like, okay, I'm sorry, Erin, I'm veering off, but like, I'm saying is that like, so then like the people are posting videos of like cops punching people in the streets, and you're like, why are cops at all punching people? Like, why is a cop
right.
punching someone? Why a punch? Like, you have handcuffs and weapons. Like, get somebody down. Like, you're wearing bulletproof. Get them down. And if you're trying to, why a punch to the face from a cop? I don't get that. But then there's another side of it, which is like the person is lighting a firework in the middle of the street. Why are they doing that? I don't want that in my street either.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yes. So I don't know.
But that does not justify punching someone in the face.
And that's what I'm saying. I hold cops to a higher standard. Yes. Like, you're supposed to be trained to work for these people.
They're the ones, yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And like, there's no excuse for this Jacob Blake video. Thing is crazy.
No, it's crazy.
I'm not talking about that. It's just like, I'm just trying to actually think how people are processing this stuff, you know? And then when it's like the liberals come with this all cops are bad thing, it's such a losing argument to me, you know?
Well,
even though I understand the outrage.
Speaking to like people who like how people can like buy it or whatever, like after the conclusion of the RNC last week, we watched Mary Trump, his niece, with the panel on MSNBC, and they asked the question like, why do you think, because they immediately fact checked his whole speech and pointed out all the falsehoods or whatever.
It was like lie after lie,
70
and also
minutes.
Terrible performance.
It was horrible. It was disgusting. But anyways, the crowd, it was bad. So Mary Trump was like, well, I can't really say why, because we could be here for hours, because it's obviously like psychological and like rooted in like people's families and beliefs. But she did say that a lot of people who buy this shit buy it because people who don't really stay informed and who don't listen to this podcast or watch the news or whatever are used to just listening to your leaders. So it's like, you know, if the president says this is how it is, then we believe him and we just take him at his word, and they don't read further into a lot of this stuff.
So I agree, and just to sum it up, because for time, but like just to bring my point back around, which is about liberals giving Trump votes. That's what I'm talking about. That's my fear. Again, I'm not defending Trump by any means. I can't.
You're not defending the police or anything.
No, absolutely. We need police reform. I'm disgusted by police behavior. I've been disgusted by police behavior even for me, and bringing up my experiences is like stupid.
Right.
Okay? I had a robbery here. I didn't like how they answered the call here. I felt like they didn't care. You know what I mean? Like I felt like they're super aggro with me when I get pulled over. I don't understand it. I don't understand the militarized behavior of the police, and I understand how whatever that culture is, needs to stop. You work for me. You work for us.
Right.
So trust me. No, I get it. Okay? But I'm saying Trump gives that interview, and this is kind of controversial, but let's like try to have these conversations. He equates bad cops with golfers. Did you see that?
No.
Okay, so he said, hey, look, not all cops are bad, right? He's saying some of them choke. People choke at all jobs. And these guys who shot Jacob Blake and these cops who are shooting, he's like, they're choking. And he said, just like a golfer who misses a putt or something, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then people are like, can you believe he equated this to golf and blah, 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 and this and that. And I was like, look, is that the best way to do this? No, absolutely not. But I just feel like getting outraged on the kind of minutia of the way he speaks and a metaphor you didn't like.
Yeah.
I don't think it's helpful. I think it's like, oh, look at this. They jumped down his throat for everything. And we've kind of off message from all of the criminal behavior he's involved in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, and it kind of points out the strength of what Biden is saying when he has been giving his speeches, which is, like you said, kind of more directed at facts, what is actually going on, and what has gone wrong for the people of this
Right,
country.
and I think Biden is completely on message, like
Yes.
and I'm happy for it. But it's like when you get like I my friends are getting upset, and I understand. Again, I understand. I'm with you. It's Trump is so infuriating, right? But he
Mm-hmm.
was, but I'm saying, but I'm saying it's like we can't get caught up in anything he says is bad, or else it feeds into his cancel culture, to bring it back, and his PC culture, left wing academic, uh, uh, um, uh, fucking Marxist message
Right.
that will resonate with households. And if I see it, imagine how someone who, and I will never vote for him, I will be going blue down the line when I vote this time, right? So I'm with you.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
choose to make me a bad guy, I don't know. But I'm saying, like, that is feeding into it. And it makes, when Laura Ingraham goes, yeah, well, the left's going to jump down your throat for that. And then they do. I think it makes votes for him as opposed to. So thank God Biden is on point with a winning message, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
Because it is true. Like, what actually, it's not true that some police officers are choking like golf. No, there's an actual problem with the way. Look at the numbers with the way policing's handled, but it's just that whatever. It's they're letting him off the hook for his "I'm the law and order" candidate when there's no law and order in this country on his watch.
Right.
And
Well,
that's what should just be brought up over and over, which is what Biden did. That's my point.
yeah. Well, the whole thing that people are talking about now, it's like Trump is speaking as if Biden is the president right now.
Right.
And like all this stuff has been created by Biden. Meanwhile, he's the president. All this, like you said, has occurred on his watch.
Right. So anyway, I don't know. Just find it like I don't like the all cops are bad thing. I don't like it because it's Trump speak. It's absolute.
Yeah.
It's as
Yeah.
many for the Star Wars people. It's Sith talk, right? It gets you
Yeah.
nowhere. All the answers are more, in my mind, are like more towards the middle. Finding this compromise. We obviously need police, and we need good police. We need better police. We need better police protocol. And we need more communal programs, which is why I vote left, if you want to know, is because I believe in sinking money into communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like putting tax money into schools and right? Like,
Of course.
as opposed to giving tax breaks to the wealthy that I do not believe trickle down. Fundamentally, that's right. So, okay. And let's talk about it. If you think I'm wrong, I know enough rich people to know it's not how it goes.
Right.
All right, let's get into our Erin. Anything you want to say on that topic, or you think we're good to move on to the
I
topic?
think we're good. I think we can move on to the next topic, Dan.
Okay, and it's fine. I think we'll be able to hit this topic fairly quick because
This
we
is
had
a
a
quick
bunch of tangent this one. But this is something, again, watching the news this week, and you don't see Dr. Fauci anymore. Talk about staying on message with Trump stuff is right. I mean, he and the Republican Party are trying to completely erase coronavirus. Now, coronavirus, I just want to remind people, is a very dangerous virus. If I could all get through the people, like, you are, and listen, I take risks in my life. We're all going on 6-7 months of this. So look, there's just gonna have to be some risks you got to take to live your life. You know, people are like, look, I'm already old. I want to see my grandkids. If I die, I die. You know, I mean, the amount of behavior I've heard from elderly people who are like, you know what, I lived a nice life. Like, I got to see my grandkids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get it, right? We're hitting that level. But that's fine. You want to take those risks? That's fine. Let's do that. But let's not avoid the truth, which is that this virus is extremely deadly. I've said it before. I've had 2 family members die, extended family members die from this virus. One from the classic way, let's call it, for lack of a better term. See, and that's like New York, right? See, that's me, like a little unrefined, right? I go, oh, the classic way, but I'm talking about a death in my family. But I'm saying from someone who was just elderly and had respiratory failure, and then another person died from a blood clot months later who had no symptoms of it other than loss of taste, okay, and smell. I'm hearing stories still. I heard a story from other people about someone who had to get their leg amputated from it. Okay, so we're saying is that like this thing, I don't give a fuck. This is one of the criminal behaviors of Trump is downplaying the coronavirus to win an election.
It is criminal.
This week on my Facebook feed, to bring it all back, I saw people who are the same. The people I haven't silenced, saying that the coronavirus, actually, the CDC changed the death toll from 180,000. Right now, we have 2 million cases of coronavirus in the United States to only 10,000. So I was like, wait, is this true? People are posting this like it's true.
Yes. It was taken, this exact tweet that you're talking about was taken off Twitter for misinformation.
Right.
For the record.
So let's get into that. Is this true? Is this not? Trump retweeted this, right? Okay. So that's your president of the United States spreading that this is true. That telling you that this coronavirus is, telling your loved ones that this coronavirus is not a big deal. Okay? That's essentially what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the article. I found a couple articles. This was the best one. It was on CNBC, so take it as you will. I guess NBC, you could say, oh, they're left-leaning, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. That's up to you. Fauci debunks theories of low CDC coronavirus death toll, okay? He says there are 180,000 plus deaths in the United States. So how is this possible, okay? Fauci comments, they come after some have claimed a new CDC update indicates only 6% of the nation's total reported COVID deaths were actually from the virus, and that the remaining percent died of other serious illnesses. But Fauci said that at least 183,600 people have died from COVID in the U.S. As of Tuesday, accounting for just over 21% of the globe's total reported deaths. So to put that in perspective, the U.S. having 21% of deaths is a crazy proportion.
Yeah, to the population.
Of the world.
Of the world, of the globe.
Right. So, okay. So White House coronavirus advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci debunked online theories promoted by Donald Trump that the Center for Disease Control and Prevention has changed its guidance for tallying coronavirus deaths, showing a fraction of total COVID-19 fatalities. On Sunday, Twitter removed a post retweeted by Trump that claimed that the CDC had quietly, put in quotes, Trump said quietly, updated its guidance to only 6% of the country's coronavirus deaths, roughly 9,000 deaths. They were so that tweet said that the remaining 94% had other serious illnesses. Okay, so. But Fauci had said that, I'm going to just jump ahead, that he indicates that people who have died from the virus, a certain percentage of them had nothing else but just COVID. However, people with underlying illnesses also die from COVID. He said that does not mean that someone who has hypertension or diabetes who dies of COVID didn't die of COVID-19. They did. Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, told the program, so the numbers you've been hearing, there are 180,000 plus deaths, are real deaths from COVID-19. Let there be no confusion about that. It's not 9,000 deaths from COVID-19. It's 180,000 deaths. Okay?
Exactly.
Okay, so he says the CDC told CNBC in a statement that the death certificates list all possible causes or conditions that lead to a person's death, and there may be more than one listed. So basically, what happens is that you can die of other conditions because of COVID, which is very common with any kind of virus. People don't die from AIDS.
Right.
They die because their immune system is so low. They die from a cough
or the flu,
pneumonia or the flu. So
right. Well, this is they're talking about comorbidities. So like you could have hypertension, contract COVID, and die. You died because you got COVID-19, not that you had these other underlying issues.
Right. So it's like a
they weren't going to
technicality we're
die.
talking
This
about
other
here.
doctor from UNC at Chapel Hill said these people were not going to die but for the acquisition of COVID-19.
Right. So like if you are obese, right, you'll probably, if you keep being morbidly obese, you will die of heart failure or a heart condition, right? You'll die of heart disease, right?
Yes.
But if you get COVID-19, you might die sooner from obesity.
Right.
Than you would if you were otherwise healthy. So the condition that began the chain of events that ultimately led to the person's the CDC considers the underlying cause of death as the condition that began the chain of events that ultimately led to the person's death. And in 92% of all deaths that mentioned COVID-19, the virus was listed as the underlying cause of death. So yeah, this is Bob Anderson, lead mortality statistician of NCHS, said in a statement. So these data are consistent with CDC guidance that those with underlying medical conditions are greater risks for severe illness and COVID-19. So that's it. Here's what it is. We have a situation where all your condition, it's that, like they've been saying this whole time, is that if you have pre-existing conditions, you are at greater risk and to die from your condition, right?
Right. No secret.
No. So the fact that, so let's go back to this. So the president, for me, the president saying, oh, Biden's run by shadow people is a fucking distraction from the fact that he is very comfortable tweeting that you're safer than you actually are going outside of your house.
Right.
That's the deal here. So let's not let him con us into getting into a PC semantics debate. He's killing people.
Yes. This is the same person who said, hey, if we had less testing in this country, we'd have less cases. No, you wouldn't. You would have the same amount of cases, just undocumented on your watch. Like, this is not some secret that's like tough to reveal about what he's trying to do with the numbers. Like, this is just another instance of this behavior.
Right. So, do not. So my whole thing is that I find it frustrating when, to sum it up, I find it frustrating when people I know who are well-intentioned people who have lived by pretty much the same principles as I do and believe the same things that I do, get caught up in the low dangling fruit that pushes people the other way. What we should all agree on is the nonpartisan stuff right now, right?
Yes.
Which is that coronavirus is being mishandled. There's a reason your kids could have been back at school in September, and in most cities they're not, except for New York, run by Andrew Cuomo, who followed science. And he could discredit them all they want. He could keep talking about ventilators, which barely matter anymore.
Hasn't been an issue since March.
Right. And he could keep talking about, oh, I gave them the ship. I gave them this and that. That's because, and I closed down the borders. He's talking about the same shit. I know time doesn't feel like anything right now. He's talking about the same shit for 6-7 months now.
And what he's not talking about is he ignores and tries to like diminish the numbers, which keep going up every single day.
Right. So if you have family members watching Fox News where they literally diminish the value of Dr. Fauci, who is what we've said on this podcast, go back a couple episodes. National treasure. The guy literally took this same kind of criticism when he was solving AIDS, okay?
Right.
Which now is basically a curable disease, a virus, okay? Thanks to him. So, look, I don't know. Coronavirus is still dangerous. Do I take risks because it's 6, 7, 8 months and I got to get out of my house more?
Yeah.
Yes. I still wear the mask. I still socially distance. I still do what I can do, what I consider to be healthy.
We're recording this podcast on Zoom.
But I'm not diminishing that. I don't need to delude myself. I'm not a wimp where I need to pretend like coronavirus is not dangerous. It is dangerous, and we don't even know half of why. Some people perfectly healthy are dying from this, and we're better at treating it now. Does that mean you should ignore it? No. And what this president's doing, frankly, in my mind, is treasonous, and I will never vote for this con man. Okay?
Ever.
All right, Erin, let's wrap it up. I know
right.
you got a Peloton to ride.
I got to take a Peloton class.
You got a Peloton to ride. Wow, privilege. Oh, good for you.
My dad paid
you and
for
Biden on your Peloton.
Yeah, I know. I'm high-fiving Biden every ride.
No.
Ride for Bides.
No, but you found a way to be active during this time, which I think is really awesome.
100%.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay, Erin.
Dan.
Thank you. Everybody, remember, thank you for listening to Regular Guy News. We are grassroots here, similar to the Bernie Sanders campaign, many would say.
Yeah.
So tell one person, if you like this podcast, right now, go tell one person to check it out, the RGN Regular Guy News on Dan Black Attack Pod. And also rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. If you're holding your iPhone right now, just click on it, scroll down, give us 5 stars, and that's it. And if you want to get on the show, send us an email at regularguynews@gmail.com. And everybody, thank you for stopping by RGN. Have a great evening. Have a great night. And remember to stay regular.